Okay, welcome. Sorry, I had a little bit of a technical glitch there right at the, of course, when things are starting, but glad to have you here tonight. It's the first stream of 2026, so this will be good to get back into the kind of normal routine. Got some things to talk about in terms of, new planner year. It's some new acquisitions over the holidays and things like that. So, it'll be a good time just to kind of get caught up on things. And I have a couple of pins to show as I've progressed in making pins. And yeah, so if you're new, well, thanks for watching. And this is a normal Thursday night thing. I see week 2 is there in the chat. Hey, Ann, good to see you. And yeah, so let me go in and switch cameras around here and we will get started. And I think what I'm going to do is start by talking about something that is not pin related. It's going to be pencil related, because I've gone on a little bit of a pencil rabbit hole lately, you might say. So let me get some stuff shifted around here. Hey, Olive Octopus Inc. Okay, so pencils. Let me move something over to the main desk here. Okay, so I have gone down a pencil exploration / rabbit hole, you might say, and not just pencils, but also lead holders, which I've become a quick fan of, and I had no idea that I would like them as much as I do. Let me get all these because I had these in a different cup. So over the past couple of weeks, these have all pretty much come to my collection, aside from these two, which came from different gentleman stationer of the subscription boxes that he's put out over the last year. And I wasn't really using them much. And then the thing that actually, I just realized I have a couple pencils that are in something else I'm going to talk about. So let me go and show this real quick, and then it'll give me a reason to pull the other pencils out. So as I've gone through the pen making, this is my rotor Faden, which I kind of alluded to before. I didn't really know its purpose when I got it, but this is now everything pen making. It's got, I've been doing some, and that is really washed out. I've been fighting light. So if I hold this at an angle, I can show that. So I've been doing some like technical-esque drawings of some of the pins that I've made. This is where I do scratch notes. And then once they have those written, this is a new notebook to me. It's the Graphilo, and I got it in the grid. And this has become my pen making reference / book. I've got an man, let me try and change the camera because that is showing terribly. Let me see. Zoom, and then bump that down. Okay, so that's much better. Okay, so you can see I have index here. I'm using some of the little light tab things not light tabs. I'm reading the chat. Little like page markers. And I'm doing like, this is a page I keep open when I'm making pins. This is like common measurements compared to other pins I've already made. So, I want to make a pin that's similar to that one. Then I can turn to the silver divider, which is in the front, and go to my common measurements, different dimensions and whatnot. These are, I rewrote all my initial scratch instructions so I can actually read them better. And I did all of this in pencil because there's some things that I've changed as I've learned more and progressed that I've been able to go back and edit. So I have in here, making a Yovo number 6 pin, and it's kind of, I've left room and tried to give stuff. So these are steps for making a body or a cap or section, or doing, internal polishing, sanding and finishing and buffing. So I've kind of treated this as my reference, and this goes into the shop. And I just realized earlier today, it sounds kind of different when you talk about your garage, but now it's a shop. It was kind of weird but cool feeling. And then this is a list of who's getting pins. So I announced towards the end of last year an unknown perk to the first 12 channel supporters is they're ending up getting a pin that I hadn't planned on initially, but they were early supporters, and that was a way to kind of give back. So I have the DWRD dozen. So I'm making 12 pins over this next year, and they're going to the first 12 channel supporters. And then I added a level, which is now the next YouTube channel member, where it's like the $9.99 a month. And after 10 months, you get a pin. And that gives me time to make sure that, someone who's been donating at a higher level would get a better quality pin. And, when I did that, I've progressed a lot faster than I ever thought I would. And then this is like some gifted pins, like the initial, like my wife's on here for a couple of the ones, some friends who, are pin people who have been giving me feedback on look and feel and things like that. And then I have a full list of every pin that I've made. So I'm currently at 15 pins. And hey, Dragon Drawer, good to see you. So I have currently made 15 pins, and yeah, that's all of them on there. And then I guess technically it'd be 15 and a half, because I have one that I did over lunch today where I've done most of it, and I'll kind of show the starting part of that. But so that's the rotor fodden, but in the back of the rotor fodden, I've been keeping a couple of pencils and things in there, and that's kind of what got me going down this pencil rabbit hole. So let me fix the light again, as I'm going to be fighting that whenever, if you've never done photography or something with lighting, anytime you have something really bright on the screen, it's going to make all the video stuff look funky. So what started this all and has led me down this path was when I got the first Spoke Model 8, which I really liked the knurling, and it made me enjoy using the mechanical pencil more. So naturally, that means I needed another one that I had a different lead in, or graphite, depending on your terminology of choice. And then, of course, you need some erasers to go with it. So I have some Tombow monos, and I bought a few of those. And then I have also the larger one that came also in a Gentleman Stationery subscription box. And so I started with the spokes, and then I was like, oh, I should try a lead holder. So while at Gentleman Stationer one day, I was like, oh, he has lead holders here. Let me get one. So I ended up getting the Caran Dash fixed pencil. And then, like I do, because I like to go down any rabbit hole to the fullest extent of whatever. Let me zoom out so I can show the drawers here. So what do I do alongside that? I buy every single 2mm lead option, and I've been slowly going through and playing with, HB, which is the standard, but then there's also an F and a B and a 2B and a 3B and a 4B. So, why stop at one when there's plenty of others that I can try out as well? So that led down the path of, well, I need more lead holders. So then, I picked up the Staedtler, a couple of knockoff roto rings, a couple of roto rings. And then I was liking using those so much. Like, there was a week, and I don't think I really used a fountain pen much at all. Like work notes, I was using lead holders or mechanical pencils. So then, of course, I went down the rabbit hole. I got a TWSBI Precision and a 0.7, which I didn't own a 0.7 mechanical. I got the Pentel Graph Gear set, which was pretty cool. It was like a 3-pencil blacked out set. A couple other TWSBIs. So no, George, I don't think I'll go to that level. But I think one of my next things I'll be doing is trying to make a pocket pin. And I know I know you're a fan of that. And with you being local, you might have to be a product tester on that. And then I've kind of collapsed this into, since got, I already owned one of these little Harbor Freight boxes that I didn't know the use for it. This has become my pencil box. So I've upgraded since elementary school with the little plastic box, and I have the mini toolbox. And seeing Brad, Pen Addict, do similar, it was a good idea. And then I also have in here my other mechanical leads. I got this cool little Oto lead holder, which I have some uni low smudge HB in. I have some B, some 2B, some Pentel. So I've been going through the pencil rabbit hole, and I've really been enjoying using them more than I ever thought I would. And I think from the pen making aspect of being able to erase as I'm learning more, changing process, that's been helpful to be able to just kind of have that shift. And as you can see, I've been keeping like a little brass ruler in here, a little machinist ruler that has different measurements in terms of fractions or things that have more to do with the lathe, so I can get accurate measurements. But that was the first kind of rabbit hole that I've been going down for a bit. And that led into something else, in that as I was doing this, I wanted other paper. So the Graphilo was an instant fan. And let me set this aside. The other paper that I'd had and hadn't really put to much use was the Canopus. And Canopus with pencil has been wonderful. And, it's great with fountain pens, but I've really enjoyed using it with pencil, like doing some doodles and sketches and testing the different light. Let me see if I can just hold this up to kind of fight that a little bit instead of changing levels. So I've been going through and using this, like planning out some video stuff. When I did my top pins, I was drafting on here of the 50-ish pins that I added last year, which, if you ever want to be startled at your hobbies, write down what you did in the previous year and have to think through, and that can be a little scary. And then this is just like a pencil test here of like the Spoke Model 8 with the HB lead, the one with the broad lead, different pencils with different things. So that's been another pleasant surprise of the Canopus being kind of the keep at my desk or take down with me to when I'm done working for the day, have on the coffee table with a pencil if I want to write something down, like I'm working on Dragon Drawer, to be clear, some of those 50 were like preppies or cocunos, but also I had been kind of out of the hobby for 6-ish years. So I just amortize it over time of thinking I was catching up for lost time. So, that's the way I'm going to justify it. And I'm good with that. So, hey, Mark, good to see you. Okay. So that's been one of the later rabbit holes. And then the other is, and hopefully my camera will zoom correctly, I was trying to get the YouTube added a feature where you can do vertical and horizontal live streams at the same time, which I didn't realize I might be able to do. And I was playing around with that right up until time. And so if my camera is a little wonky when I try and show the side cameras, I apologize. Let's see, like that. You don't want to see my ceiling fan. So switch to, okay. So I bought a drafting table because, of course, if I'm going to be drawing some pencils or pens that I'm making, I need a place to do it, because my desk, I do work at my desk. I do film videos, and I wanted a spot that I really have no screens, it's all behind me. And Facebook Marketplace is a wonderful and terrible thing. Wonderful for finding cool stuff, terrible because then you find cool stuff that you feel like you need to buy. So that's where I've been lately, writing letters that I've sent out. I'm fully caught up, and I put the note in the chat. But if you want a letter and you're not on the list, which a lot of the names I'm seeing in chat currently are, there's a hey David, I'm glad to see you on the stream, and I'm glad you finally got the card. And let me pin that note. If you want to have a letter or a postcard sent, you can follow the link that's in the video description and I'll send you one if you're not on the list already. And then I've kind of just started going through and adding more. Hey Rahul, good to see you as well. So, in one side note, David, check the YouTube channel part. I've added a Discord, and in Discord, with you being a channel member, there's a perk that I'll be showing an aspect of here in a moment. So you'll want to be sure you can follow along there. Yeah, great to see a bunch of channel members on here. And so let me get back to what I was saying. So I have the drafting table. I've been loving it. It's below it, you can't really see, but I've got a similar shelf that I store my typewriters on, because that's the other thing. And let me see if I can get the cameras to play nice to go to the right spot to show the typewriter I was gifted. Gotta think of which camera I'm talking about here. That one, and let's see if that goes to the right place. So it does enough. So let me do this. So Mark, the drafting table has an angle, but I found the angle that I needed at to be able to set stuff on and not have it fall off is about where it's at. But so over here you can see where I put the pencil box, and then this is going to be a little challenging to see how far I can stretch the microphone so you can hear me. So this is my latest typewriter, and this was my mom's typewriter that she used all through college, through her master's. It's an Olivetti Studio 44, and if you've gotten a letter recently, it was typed, it was probably on that machine. And I've been putting at the bottom of different things of yeah, Dragon Drawer. My desk started as one, and then I was like, I need more space with doing YouTube, and like all of those right there, that's all just A5 papers. As I've gone down papers, you can see my storage binders for the plotters. Hey George, glad to see you're now a channel member. That's great. And David, thanks for your comment there. But this is kind of my utility area, and you can see there's the other 1941 typewriter that's kind of out of view, and then underneath this is 4 more typewriters, because who doesn't need 6? If you're gonna do it, do it. So I've been doing that, and alongside the typewriter, I was at Butler Stationery the other day, and then I got this, the little 3D printed pen cup. And yeah, essentially I'm in like a U of 3 desk, and I'm okay with that because each one has its own special thing. But yeah, the green paint that came with the house, our house was built in the late 90s, and when we bought the house in 2018, we were looking at, well, do we want to get things painted? We looked at what's the color of the year, like for our main house, our main like living room and whatnot. It's kind of like a terracotta-esque color. We're thinking, oh, what's the color? The colors had come around full circle, and that was almost the exact color that was the color of the year. We're like, you know what? We're good. We're timely. Well, Rahul, at least 3 of the 5, so you're in the majority are running, so that's good. Multiple cars, because I can also know how any hobby can go through. But I just thought this was neat. Someone on the Pen Addict Slack had posted there's a different little like ceramic type typewriter, and then I saw this and I was like, oh, I'd much rather get that. But in here, this, and let me zoom down a little, this is one of the pens that is in progress. This was what I did on my lunch break today. This is going to be assuming that the pin holds up, because some of these materials can be very brittle, as in the first section that I made for this that cracked at the end of the lunch break. You know, this would technically be the third channel member pin that would go out. And these are all the triple start, and this is a cool material. This is diamond cast, and well, George, is there such thing as too many lattes, really? And I've never realized how, when I'm having people watch me try and thread a cap on, how that would be bouncing around. But this is, a pin in progress. This top here, that's the diameter of the material, about 3/4 inch of this blank. And, it gets turned down. This still has the rough edges. So I was literally, what could I do during the hour? I had to clean up some stuff because Beth is getting into sewing, and I gifted her for Christmas a bag kit. So she made her first ever sewing project, which was like a tote bag out of wax canvas, which turned out really cool. But, one of my other hobbies is leatherworking from the past. And of course, we needed to pull out the leather tools to punch the holes and things like that. But yeah, but that's what this pin is. And, in theory, this will go to channels supporter number 3. And I'm not giving the orders of names yet per se, but just to give some reference, this was the first pin that I ever made that has like and let me do the full zoom in, similar material, but you can see like the brittleness with the chunks knocked out of it. And, I didn't know how to deal with the lathe marks on the bottom, and the finish work was terrible, but it was a start, so I take it as a win. The threads takes forever to unthread. You have to start somewhere. So I've just been keeping this kind of sitting on the desk as a reminder that, hey, you're not doing so bad. So that's the pin that's in progress. But now something I'm really excited about is I've already gifted the first pin. So the first channel supporter received his pin because he happened to be someone local. When I was down at Butler, I left it for him. And that's been great. But so someone who if you're on the Discord already, you might have seen notes of there was one pin that's out of order. So one of the supporters, Nick, and I'll get a link here in a second. And Lisa, you might be able to get one. Nick Dominguez is a local Nashville artist and pin club member, and he just coordinated with Gentleman Stationery, or collaborated, and released some rickshaw products of his originally drawn fountain pen art, which are awesome. I already have one ordered that I'll pick up Saturday at Gentleman Stationer. Really excited for that, but check those out. But it'll be cool on Saturday because this is the first pen I learned how to do the internal polishing on. And this was a blank that he had, which this is very Nashville area pen. Nick Dominguez had bought this blank from him a couple of years ago at a pin turner show in Nashville. And it had just been sitting around, and he's like, hey, I have some blanks. And this just turned out so cool. So, and I guess I should put a nib in here. Let me grab a nib just so you can see, because it shows well, but it shows better when you can see the transparency. And Nick has some other ground nibs that he's going to end up putting a ground nib in here. But I think I got the transparency pretty spot on there, where you can see the nib through there. And then, so the internal polishing part, it adds time, a decent amount of time. Okay, so Anne has already ordered one from Nick, and George has ordered one. I know Lisa has one. I ordered the brown Fillmore and then the green 2-pin to go inside the Fillmore. But this will be Nick's pin, and this was the first internally polished pin that I did. I learned how to internally polish on Monday night with Nick Pasquale, and I did this on Tuesday. So I was able to use my notes that I was showing earlier and rewrote them and now I have done an internally polished pen. So this is exciting. And then the next one that I can't wait for Saturday as well, because Olive Octopus Inc., who is channel supporter number 2, this is going to be her pen. And this one is cool because, one, the material looks nothing like this when I turned it down. This is called Glacial Moraine by Papa J. And it's a blank that he had brought, and it was just in my blanks. I didn't even realize I had a blank that Luke had poured. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then the cool thing with this is with the internal polishing, because you really want to internal polish anything that's transparent. Let me see if I can turn the light down here a little bit to let this show better. Oh man, that is really not gonna, it's gonna fight. So let me just go really dark, and then I'll turn it back up. So you can see there, look how cool that is. You can see the smoke. It gives depth, which the camera doesn't show it, and with the light in it doesn't show it as much, but it's got this kind of grayish smoke and blue. And this is going to date how old I am, which I'm fine with. If you ever saw the Spider-Man movie that had Electro as the villain, it reminds me of the electric beams that Electro had. And the section, and this is the part that wigs me out. This was the end of the pen, so that completely white, and there's some little blue wisp in it, which I know are not really gonna, you can kind of see it there a little bit, just the faint hit. And then get that centered. You can see how it's just transparent enough for some of those little smoke things to show up. So I've actually already reached out to Luke. I was like, I think I need a couple of more sticks of this material because this is just ridiculously cool. So I'm really looking forward to being able to give both of these to their respective owners on Saturday at Pen Club. It's nice having not just supporters, but also local supporters, which then I can just hand stuff and, get feedback and whatnot. But I've been very pleased. And I would say within my, month and a half, to go from no shaping to actually having rounded shapes and polishing, doing pretty good. I'm feeling good about things. And I'm just excited because I'm sure Olive Octopus can attest. I've sent enough pictures man, it just looks so cool. And it looks better in person than because actually that right there, the camera is kind of showing how the electric blue kind of glows. It's a very unique color, but excited for those. So the pen making is going well. I'm kind of limiting myself to where I'll do 2 nights during the week. I'll go into the garage and try and make something, and I'm having less structural failures because I'm learning more about the materials and how to use them better and which materials not to use and things like that. So that's been very helpful. But yeah, it's just fun. It's one of those things I didn't really expect, of how cool it is to see what the material looks like when you start and then what it ends up as. And, I didn't think I would be able to get pins, these gifted pins out initially. But, like I said, things are progressing better than I could have hoped. And I'm loving that. So on to 2026. Let's talk. I did the video that put out last week before, the Techo Kaiji, which I mispronounced in the opening of the video, which someone was gracious enough to tell me. I, didn't even think about that. That's one of those quirky things when doing edits and whatnot. But so this, my Galen leather bag, the banker's bag, that I got last time I went down to Finesse, and I'm still working through the same Kikuyo journal. And then this is just full of stickers. It's got all the stickers, some traveler stickers, some typewriter stickers, some random stickers. There's a sticker in here that I have not yet put in the journal that George sent from his trip to Disney. Some other little stuff. This is one from Eric from Amarillo. He sent me a couple of the bottles of his inks. So I need to, a little bit behind on journaling, I'm not going to lie, because the pen making stuff, that's where I'm trying to get better about not RG like in graft. Kaigi. Kaigi? Is that correct, Adelina? Techo Kaigi. But yeah, this is still, I'm working through that journal, and I saw that Gentleman Stationer got some more of these in with the new colors of the material for the, not the Galen, the actual journal itself. And I might do that. I was going to do Astrology next, but the Astrology is so much thicker, it would take me a couple of years to get through it. This one, because I've used stickers, and once I kind of get back into my better routine of journaling, instead of saying, hey, I need to get caught up and I'm trying to backtrack a couple of weeks or more at once, I think that'll get easier. But this is one, I'm still using the Mini 5 as my wallet. You can see it's starting to get some good patina from getting carried around. I did end up with the Antique ballpoint, was the pen that lives in here. Have I used it much? No, because this is the, if I don't have other paper with me, which I almost always have something else, either my Bible size plotter or something else with me. But it's nice to have this. I've done like some shopping list and things like that, but this has actually worked better than I thought it would as a wallet. And I really do like how the leather is getting a kind of an evenly worn in look, because I carry in the front pocket, not the back. And so in terms of calendar, I mentioned the typewriter earlier, and I went full glutton for punishment. So this is my desk plotter, the A5, and in it I use the laconic inserts. And let me get to the front here. So let me make this show a little better. Zoom in, change the light down a little. I went through the entire next year and used the typewriter and typed in on every single box for every single month the dates. So you can see I have things in here like the Arkansas Pin Show. I'm going to Connuga. We've got a work go live event. But I typed the year, the month, and then every single date. And I kind of got into a flow, because that's one thing with that typewriter I was gifted. I got all of the tabs set where I could just hit tab and it would go from box to box to box. And hey, Nick, I'll show. Actually, I'm going to pause because I want Nick to see. I was talking about how you will be getting your pin, and we were also talking about your rickshaw collaborations that look awesome. I can't wait to have that on Saturday when I pick up my order. But, this is Nick's. So Nick, who's in there in the chat, he's the artist who did the cool rickshaws, and this is going to be his pin. This is a blank he had. And one thing I didn't show when I was showing this a second ago, and let me see if I can get it to show in here. You can kind of see it looks like it's a mark. There's actually a wisp of the there. So this kind of reminds me of Olive Octopus's glass pin that Lucas made. It's got the wisp of like color just kind of mixed in that fully transparent base. And Nick, I don't remember what grind you said you were going to put in here. I have a nib in here. I was showing just the transparency of it, but excited that you'll have this, and hopefully you'll have one of your rickshaws. You can put this in your rickshaw. So very excited. And then I was showing Lisa's pin as well. So at Pin Club on Saturday, we're going to have all the new pins because Nick and Lisa are going to have to ink these up immediately because of course you are, new pins. So back to calendar. Yeah, I went through and did all the typing for the entire year on Christmas Day. That's how, we did family stuff like on Christmas Eve, and Beth has added an extra couple of desks around the house. So she has a journaling/writing desk that's not her book writing desk, that's on our landing, which is outside my office. We were just talking back and forth as I'm sitting here, clap, 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 typing individual dates. And then when I would mess up a month, the appropriate language that goes with, I have to start over again because I did something wrong. Like the back of, it was the first couple pages where, I did the whole month. And then I get to the next month and I forgot that, I can't, the second page of April, the back of it needs to be the first page of May. So I had a couple of extra Januaries and Februaries. But yeah, so that's the laconic for the year. And then I also use it for the week as well. And I've been using a lot more pencil. So this is like tomorrow, like this weekend, been using pencil in here a lot more, and then going back and doing the color coding after the fact. And I'm really liking how that's working for me because, doing contract work, I need to keep a good record of meetings and stuff I've attended. And some of that shifted over the holidays, and I was just able to erase, add it back in, and then I've been adding the colors. I didn't get caught up because I've been doing that a lot of the time, like on Wednesday or Thursday or during lunches. And because of trying to get prepared for streaming again, and been reaching out to, I want to start my season 2 of the podcast soonish. So trying to reach out and use that time to send emails to kind of coordinate the guest list. But that has been my main desk calendar that I'm going with. And then over here, which I didn't think to get out, which hopefully that does not fall. I'm still using the Bible size for the carry around with me version. Been keeping one of the Yamamoto paper things in the front. And then I bought the dated, because I did not want to have to go through and deal with, for this smaller calendar, so I have the dated month and then the weeks. And I have, I think, only a couple months worth of, I don't have a ton of weeks in here yet because they won't all fit. So I have my storage binder. So I'm got up through, was that April? Something like that. So that's been what I've been doing. What are some of y'all using for your calendars? Nick, did you go with a Sterling again? And I know, and you've got some ring bound stuff. And so throw in the chat there. What are you using for your calendar stuff? Because it's always interesting to see the whys. What's the use case? There was someone who commented on the video I put out saying they didn't have enough to track, so they weren't using anything, and I get that. But I've really liked the ring bound system, and Nick is somewhat to blame for that, which I'm okay with because he showed me his at Pin Club forever ago, and I was like, man, that looks kind of cool. That reminds me of the file effects I used to use, and it really got me to come full circle back to the thing. But you can see with the setup there, at some point I'm working out, I'm trying to do it where I could do a stream where I'm not at this side at all, because I have at to the side of the drafting table I showed earlier, my other microphone, so I can still talk and be heard from there. So if I wanted to do like a handwritten letter writing or something like that, I'm going to be able to do that as well. So I'm trying to optimize the the setup. So I have multiple varieties of ways to do streams because I really enjoy the streams, honestly, more than I do. And apparently the AI is on that camera, which I was not planning on. So that must have turned itself on. So let me get back to okay, that's the one there. Sorry, multiple buttons of multiple cameras. And then each camera has 3 zoom points. So I'm looking forward to getting some of the next, and some of y'all in the chat, your pins will be in progress soon. If you're on the channel membership, and then, I want to experiment with trying to make a pocket pin. Don't use a ton of cartridge converter pins, but that's really the limitation, is getting the converter to fit. So I think that would be a fun experiment. Okay, so Hobonichi Weeks. Yeah, Nick, I get that. I have a work calendar on the digital side, and then Beth and I have a shared Google calendar that we put stuff in so that, we can reference. But what I've started doing is, like, on Monday mornings, I go through and I write in to the paper calendar, to the A5 that's on my desk, make sure I'm up to date for anything that I need to be aware of on the monthly. I've been better about writing it on the monthly and actually using the monthly. Last year, I never really used the monthly view much, and I realized I should have, because that's going to be a better visual indicator, especially as I start getting things scheduled for podcast recordings where, that might be on a Tuesday night, and then on Wednesday night, I need to have set aside a block of time for editing it. And then if I'm releasing on Thursday, so there's much more time blocking that I'll need to be doing, and getting that kind of better view at the month level of, because that's one thing I'm going to try and do with this next season of the podcast, is not be in such a rush, where I'd like to be not 2 weeks behind, but like have a week of overlap of when I record something, so that it's not, because being new at it last time, there were a couple of the episodes that, I had a guest have to cancel, and I didn't want to miss the Thursday release day. So I might have recorded it on a Wednesday, got it all edited and, uploaded that night so it would release on Thursday morning. And that was more stress for a hobby that I'm trying to counteract. So I'm going to try and be a little bit more intentional about scheduling things in advance. I mean, obviously life happens. If people have to cancel, that makes perfect sense, but that would give a little bit more lead time. And there's probably some guest who will not have anything time sensitive to announce. That's something I was trying to also do last time. I was trying to do a lot for someone who'd never done a podcast, never done anything like that. Go all in. Why not? Jump into the deepest of the thick and try and do everything. And then there's still something the software I use to record will do it, that I need to do a test run, and it'll probably be some of the Pin Club people or something like that, and where you can have a live audience during a recording, and I think that would be fun. So at some point, I'm going to try and figure that out, because there's a couple of guests that I think that could be fun, even if they're like a repeat guest or like a panel discussion of, getting some people to help curate some live audience questions. I think that would be a cool experience. And if you like that idea, let me know in the chat if that's something that you think would be fun for an occasional either live stream time or something like that. If we could have a kind of a moderated Q&A for somebody in the stationery hobby, I think that'd be fun. And even if it's something like, Nick in the chat's talking about analog and digital, I've been very intrigued with the Obsidian and the digital stuff that he does as well. And that'd be cool, because as much as I love analog, I work in IT. I have a digital existence that I have to counteract with and deal with. And there's a lot of stuff that might help with the organization on the digital side. I'm getting a lot better on the analog of keeping things repeatable, how I like them, you know, and using more and more analog and replacing digital, but it will never be fully replaced. I mean, we all know this. It's going to be a mixture, and, that is the hard part. As Nick was saying, the struggle is balancing between the two. And Dragon Drawer, I had the Hobonichi Weeks last year, and the paper fought me. Yeah, for collaboration, the digital space does work. No, Nick, I fully get that. I've been getting to where that's a nice thing of contract work. When 5 o'clock hits, I don't look at a computer. I used to take my laptop like downstairs to the living room with me, and what now my phone will go, and unless there's something pressing, I'm trying to be more analog in the evenings to just kind of, give my brain and my eyes a rest. And that's when I'm doing more of the analog stuff. And that's been a good mix. I haven't gotten to the point yet of leaving a typewriter on the coffee table, but I mean, I do have enough that might be feasible. Who knows? But that's something else I've thought about too is, as a somewhat natural introvert who draws himself into extroverted things like live streams or a podcast, I think the typewriter stuff is so intriguing. There's a lot of crossover between the pen world. Like, I'm going to take some typewriters with me when I to Arkansas and probably Atlanta, and maybe even try and do find somewhere in Nashville to do a type in. And I've got 6 typewriters, so I could have at least 6 people, sitting down just to play around with a typewriter. It's a whole different tactile thing. Like earlier today, I hadn't used some of the other ones for a bit, so I was, putting them on the desk, and I was listening to a work meeting and typing some notes. So I have a little sheet here that was just some scratch paper from the different video. So I have, typing from one typewriter there, one there, one there, and one there. So I went through 4 different typewriters, just, seeing how they work, because I got a couple of them at the same time. So I hadn't really had that much of a chance to put them to much use. And it's going to be more challenging now that I have the one that I was gifted from my mom, because that thing is in mint condition and it types wonderfully. It's an Italian design made in Spain. And I mean, it's just great to type. And I've noticed I can't do my touch typing on a typewriter, but I can type just as fast. My brain, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but it's like my brain thinks in a different way, and I do index and middle fingers only, but I'm still typing at about the same speed. It's kind of trippy, but in a cool way of, being able to not have the analog really slow me down if I'm really wanting to churn through and type something out. Like I typed a letter the other day. Hey, Sandy Banks. Which one were you talking about? Were you talking about... let me switch back over here. I mean, I think they're both awesome, and I can't wait for their future owners to receive them. But, and Nick, just so you know, I asked Nick if he had a name for this, and I don't think he did, but I do have another stick of this now, so I might end up making a twin of this because the material, it's kind of nice seeing what something's going to look like before you turn it down. So I've got a cheat sheet here of what another pen could look like. And also, to go back to pens, I have ordered some blanks from Lisa Marie at Poorly Controlled. I ordered just some mystery blanks. And then I've also ordered some blanks from Daryl of D Squared. I guess I could name it. Actually, you might need to name it because you had the blank and you'll have the pen. And then we can just tell the other Nick, hey, this is what this blank is called. Yeah, Dragon Door, that's how I learned to type. I mean, when I got my first computer that wasn't like the family Apple Apple IIe, I was, you know, like I learned to type through instant messaging. And that's a very different type of typing, but there's a lot of people of my age or around there, AOL Instant Messenger was the king of the dorm when I went to college, and everybody used that as like their status. You want to know what someone's up to? Look at what is their status on AOL Instant Messenger, and you would chat with friends at home. You would chat with your roommate who might be on the other side or someone who's next door. That was just what we did, and it's a very different type of typing, but I think there's a lot of people probably in a similar age bracket to me. We can all type pretty fast because we wanted to have fast chatting. Um, it mostly is, Nick, on different ones, and let me grab one I can show you. So this is a 1961 Smith Corona Skywriter that belonged to a Metro Nashville school teacher that I guess the lady I bought it from had like bought a storage unit or something. But on the layout here, most of these older ones don't have a 1 key. So let me see if I can get this. There we go. So they don't have a 1. What you'd use for the 1 is a lowercase l. But then you have, most number key. There are some that don't have numbers that are meant. I don't really know what their purpose is because numbers are used so commonly. But you've got like a margin release. So if you get to where your margin will stop and you need to type like 1 or 2 more characters to finish a word, you can hit that and it gives you could type past your paper technically. And then you've got, these are some of the unique ones, like you've got a quarter and a half. So there are some with fractions. There's different keyboard layouts too. Most of them are QWERTY. I know Anne picked up one in San Antonio that has the German keyboard layout. So you've got, she can type all the, what'd you say, Anne? All the odes to Motorhead that you'd ever want to, because you have like the umlauts and whatnot on the keyboard. QWERZ. So it's got the German layout, and there are different layouts depending on where you get it. Get caught up on chat here. Yeah, that AOL Instant Messenger, that raised a generation of typists. Were we typing correctly? Not all the time, but we were typing fast. And, because I grew up with the Apple II. My mom was an English teacher, and we had an Apple IIe with the dual floppy drives. The any key, that one's back here. That's the any key up here on the carriage return. But yeah, and I like to think I've actually had people work when I was doing basic help desk, getting started in IT. I'll never forget, I started by doing like phone support, and I worked in a healthcare system, and my friend also worked there, and he was helping train me. And we put this back over here. And I had someone call in, and they were saying, I was like, oh yeah, we'll just, press any key, or they needed to do like a control delete or something like that. And they're like, how am I going to press 2 keys at the same time? And that caught me off guard. And I'm thinking worst case scenario, like, oh my gosh, does this person only have 1 hand? I was like, you would use 2 fingers? And the lady was like, oh, okay. And my friend who's training me is just on the double listening headset laughing as much as can be, because what do you say to that? Like, how do you hit 2 keys at once? I can't. Yeah, that was a memorable moment, because that was like week 1 of working in a completely new field, thinking, oh yeah, this will be easy. And then you have something like that, the people aspect that can throw a loop in. But yeah, that was quite memorable. Let's see. See, Rahul, I can kind of get that. My dad is colorblind, so you know, there were little things like he did, because like work clothes, shirts, and pants when they all look similar. It was always be written in a marker on the tag, navy blue, black, brown, so you could coordinate by looking at the. I thought of the 6 month strategy. That's correct, Sandy. At, I have Stology and I have one that I need to try, but with writing in the tiny nibs that I tend to use, I can get away with using more papers, and I'd hate to. I don't know. I was kind of surprised by liking. I used to be when I started to journal. It was you only journaled on lined paper. That's how it was, and then I broke away from that, and I'm actually using grid in the one I have now, and I actually kind of like it. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm using stickers and washi and some of that kind of stuff. The grid. So I still have enough left in my current journal to figure out what I'm going to do next, but I might still pick up one of the cover fabrics that I like of the Cocuno ones just to have it. So Rahul, my wife, asked that question not long ago. She's like, well, I mean, she has washi tape, but what do you really use? It's pretty much just decorative. Like, let me grab some here. So this is some of my washi tape, and I've been using a lot of this on letters. So like I've got this one here that's like, snail mail envelopes and things like that. I do have the curse word washi tape that, because why not? I've got some ink bottle washi tape. I've got probably one of my favorites that has trash pandas and says trash panda says wash your paws. So you can do 3 trash pandas. It has the words and then 3, and it'll fit perfectly across an A5 envelope. So there's a good chance that some of you in the chat who've received letters have had trash panda washi on the back or the snail mail. This is my first washi I ever bought that was rolls of toilet paper that says they see me rolling. And I actually have some of this on my wrist rest that I use to help hold things on. I don't even know what this one is. It says, what did you say? So I bought some washi that I didn't really have a plan for. I was like, why not? This one has snail mail forever. So having a variety, because especially for me, if I'm sending letters to the same person, like with a repeat correspondence, which that's happened with some people, I want to have something different. So, got to keep people guessing of what's going to be on there. So in terms of the journal, sometimes I just take some and let me see if I can quickly find a page, because I used to just write on lines, and since I write tiny, it would take me forever. And, I didn't, I was the only one looking at it. But now that I've kind of added in where I've got, stickers or the happiness handmade stickers, I really like the ones that Danielle makes. So here's one that has like, I was writing something about well-appointed desk, and I have some of the well-appointed desk washi at the bottom, or, but you can see with the tiny writing, here's some, I just added some on the border. I've got talking about coffee something, and I have coffee washi there. And somewhere in here, someone sent me something, and what Nick is alluding to, here's a sticker that done by Olive Octopus. And so is that one with fountain pen inks. But, and also the infamous Swamp Ass sticker, which is really awesome. So you can see I used for a while, I kept the roll of well-appointed desk washi in with my journal. So that's what I had with me at the time. So I used it more. Here's what I'm talking about. So this was when I got my Skogsy, my Micarta. I took the little card and I just stuck it in here. So that way I had it it's kind of a reference slash memory of, oh, this is talking about micarta and how it can age, or there's one with the curse washi, and then this random brown washi that almost looks like a sewing pattern and a ruler. So that there's it's just meant to, it's kind of a choose your own adventure. There's no wrong way to use it, so just use it. Like sumo stickers. Do I need a sumo wrestler and some sushi on a piece of paper? No. But do I like it there? I do. Or like, some typewriter stickers. Like when I got the first one, I was missing a part. I contacted the guy at Typewriter Chicago, and he mailed me a part for free and sent me a sticker. It's like, well, of course I got to put that there. So, and then finding at Vanessa actual Royal typewriter stickers was a surprise, but so I just kind of randomly put, like, if I'm writing something down that has to do with something that has a sticker that has a reference, like this was from the previous Pelican Hub. There was somebody who made stickers. So I just kind of mix and match, throw them in there. And this one is one that I don't think I've seen Lydia on the chat, but that's one that she makes from Arkansas Pen Club area. And there's a traveler. And here's another one. This was the other one I was looking for. George sent me this in one of the letters he sent me, and it's just a printout of a photo from our Pelican Hub. And I'm back there in the back there, and we were over there, but I stuck that in here just to have that as a reference from Pelican Hub. So, and then other random stickers and washi. So it's, Rahul, I get what you're saying. And I was the same way. I was like, I would never use that in a journal. That's just, and then I did it and I was like, this is so much more fun. And for me, if I want to ever get to other books, it helps take up space. I get the, it doesn't look right or something, but the older I've gotten, the more my effort meter has gone non-existent. And, this is a hobby for fun, and colorful visual things help make it fun. So go for it. I mean, why not? So, yeah, so get washi. And the good thing is there's so many different washi options. You can get fun washi. Like Olive Octopus just put in the chat, you can use it to reinforce edges of paper if you're going to punch holes in it for things that you regularly would be flipping through a ring system. It's a lot cooler to have reinforcements that have coffee or something like that. Oh, my other washi thing. I can't forget this because this was from the St. Jude from Kaleidocraft. It's a cassette tape that has currently my well-appointed desk and my coffee washi inside of it. And then it's got 3D printed little perforations there. So when you pull the washi out, you can get perfectly perforated side on there. So you can get these on the Kaleidocraft website. I would highly suggest doing it. She also has some that are like very 80s, 90s, like neon green. I kind of liked the black and gray, but that's a handy way. Now, it doesn't fit every roll of washi because there's some that are thicker. But, I mentioned that to Jacqueline when I first got this because I was one of the early recipients of this because it was kind of a bonus and something else I'd ordered from St. Jude with the pin blocks. And I was like, well, I love it, but it also doesn't fit all the washi rolls I have. So she might be looking at making a little bit thicker one to hold. Yeah, I think this is a regular item now, Nick, through the Kaleidocraft site. It was kind of a preview during St. Jude, but now I believe it's a regularly made item. And if not, if you send a message to Jacqueline, I think since they already have the files, they can easily make stuff. Because that's kind of they did a really great job of word of mouth marketing by sending little bits of things like as kind of freebies test the waters and what people ask about. And like, this is another little thing that came in one of my Kleidercraft orders. It's a pin that has a swirly thing. So talk about fidget. That's like prime fidget right there. You can just, and then it's got a little magnetic base. So I guess it's meant where you would just like put the magnet on there and then, I don't know. I fidget with it. I don't use it to write all that much, but I play with it because how could I not? And it's refillable, so you can put a different refill in it. I think it's like a G2 refill. So little things like that. It's just, it's like the washi. It's fun. Why not? So, yeah, but definitely check these out if you're a washi user or Rahul. Maybe this is what you need in order to step up the washi game. If you're pulling it out of a cassette and getting the nice ripped perforations, that's kind of the gateway. It's got a neater use, because that's one thing. At first when I first got it, I was using scissors, and I would take the scissors and I would try and cut the edges, and now I'm just like, put my finger down, rip it, whatever happens. Like I said, the more you use it, the more it's just like, organized chaos is fun. So why not? George, that would be awesome if it would work like that. I would try and rewind my washi with the pin, and that'd be even more fun if these did turn in the middle to get if these did turn to get a 3D printed pin that would fit perfectly into those center pieces. So, Rahul, I am also not a sticker on a laptop person. I broke my own rule, because that's one thing that I'd always think. And let me see if I can slide this forward enough without it. I have my own podcast sticker on my laptop. That's the first sticker I've ever put on a laptop that was like a current laptop, not like a Chromebook or something that was just kind of a, beater. And I'm really surprised at how well that has held up, just sticking on there. But I get, the laptop thing, because, I do have on the back though a full like vinyl sticker for the entire top and bottom. And I really like that because it protects the computer, but it's like topographic. It gives a little bit of flair. And I did just think of one other thing related to washi. In my other washi box, this is where I keep my spare washis. So like I stocked up on the curse word washi, which if you're going to get some, you can get it with nice gold foiled curse words or black. So keep that in mind. And I have another trash panda, another snail mail. And then this is one that Beth got, or we went to the other new stationery store in Nashville. I'm blanking on it. The website is Cora Kriya Crafts. She does like general stationery stuff, but Creative Corner Nashville. So it's another store that's not so much pens. It's more of journaling and stuff like that. And Rahul, that's something else with you being in the Houston area. Look for like a journaling class. You might go meet some random people who are, wanting to play with pens and journals and whatnot too. And it might give you ideas, because this one is kind of cool because it's got this like glowing Viking, and yeah, there's different stores. So with you where you are, it's not exactly close, but it's not exactly far. Little Craft Place, they might do some sort of like journaling classes, because that's Conroe, which, I think that's probably closer, if I remember correctly, where you are in the Houston area versus going into Dromgool's. And I don't know if Dromgool's does classes like that, but, journaling meetups are like, kind of like co-working in person. You'd all just kind of take your stuff and, yeah, so you might look at the Little Craft Place website, because they have the stationery show, which is this year, because that was being talked about earlier today as the Pen Addict was working out his schedule. they do the Houston Stationery Fest. So that's where you're going to be able to see all sorts of cool washi and stuff and, get ideas. And, if it's something you want to get into and you're uncertain, there's a lot of resources online, that maybe that's something that I'll go through on a stream one Thursday, because I think that would be interesting too. Just how I would choose, or like a choose your own adventure of, okay, which washi should I use? How are we going to put this on here? Because like these Toyoka craft boxes, they need some decoration on them, but I'm not as indecisive as I once was, but I also like to have a theme. If I'm putting stickers on something, I want there to be, in general, some sort of organization, so it's we all process things and, deal with them a little bit different. Yeah. And then there's enough of you Texas folk in this little community we're building here that, maybe y'all could do a meet halfway between San Antonio and Houston, find some cool restaurant, and then play with pens or typewriters or journaling or writing. And, eventually, because Rahul and Ann, y'all are both going to end up with a pen made by me. You can go compare notes, once those are completed and sent to you, just saying, why not? Because I know San Antonio has a pretty active pen club, just from seeing posts that Ann or Queen of Washi have posted about, traveling. So I'm sure the Houston area probably has one, if not more, because Houston being as large as it is, you might be able to find a pen club if there's not one already. Then I think David is Austin area. So there's, maybe that needs to be a people who watch streams meet up at some point. That'd be cool, just to, play with pins and talk pins in person. So yeah, I don't know. It's just fun. So that's really all I had planned for tonight. Just kind of talking about 2026. I wanted to show those pins. I'm really excited about them for, Nick and Lisa to get theirs on Saturday. And, I started working on what hopefully will become Ann's pin, because she was number 3 on the list. And, assuming that there's not because it's one thing, some of these materials like the diamond cast looks cool when you're done with it, but it's also very brittle. And, with brittle materials, if the tool hits it the wrong angle, like the section from earlier today, it will just shatter and leave a big chunk out of it. Sometimes you can salvage that, sometimes you can't. So luckily, when you get a blank, you've got enough to do a pin, a section, and then there's normally, because blanks are normally about 8.5 inches. And most of the pins I've been doing are like a 3.5 inch body, a 2.5 inch cap as the start. When you cut it, 1.25 inch section, and then you have what's left. So I have another unharassed piece of the same material to try and make a section with. If not, it might get a completely different color section. Who knows? I think I have some blues that would look cool. And, now that I'm getting into this, I really wonder if there's, some different pen makers and models I've seen in the past, all their sections are the same color. And I can see how that could make sense. Because then you make it out of a material that's a little bit more resilient and not as brittle. But, the material aspect, that's going to be part of the fun. I'm learning that the diamond cast, while it looks cool, it's not my favorite to turn, even though I'm new at it. But I'm really liking the stuff that, Nick has poured, with him being local, and then the patterns that Lisa Marie has. And that's the nice thing. That's why I ordered the mystery box. I have no idea what my 4 blanks will be from her. And, that'll be interesting because all of her blanks are ridiculously cool. That's what my Cerberus is made out of. That's the bourbon and smoke, poorly controlled. I know Olive Octopus has 1 or 2 pins out of Lisa Marie materials, and I think Ann might too, and possibly Nick. So, you know, the different materials will definitely be part of the fun. And, for those of you who are getting the channel supporter pins, you're getting the material that I think, either the order that I happen to make it. I don't want to get to the point, since I only have single blanks of everything, where I can let people choose. I think that'll be the higher level once I get through the kind of intro 12, the first dozen, and then once I have a little bit different supply. So George, I do have a whole bunch of nubs, and what I've been trying to do, and what I'm going to do is, like what I was talking about, getting blanks and multiples, is turn down some of the scrap pieces like a little bit, so then I know what the insides could look like. It's a better reference. So kind of like having a swatch book. It'd be like a swatch book of materials. And then a couple other things I want to play around with. I know that, different people have done it, but I want to do my take on something that I can try putting my Kakamori in, so making my own version of a nib holder. I think that would be fun. And then, like I mentioned earlier, making a pocket pen of some sort that'll use cartridges. I think that would be fun. And then, I didn't show this earlier. So, with getting into the pins and stuff, of course they need nibs. So I tried to get organized, and I got a little box, and if you can see in there, I have the labeled sizes, and I have 50 more nibs coming, because you had to order a large batch in order to get the volume discount. So once those arrive, I will have nibs to last me for the foreseeable future. And I got most of these are, they're all stainless number 6 Yovos. These are silver, and I got a few of the gold finish, because there are some materials that I think that might work better with. And this will let me keep things organized. I got a dual-sided box, so this will be the silver nibs, and the gold will be on the other. And then I have also all the converters. Ever since I had a converter have an incident in my D-squared design pen, which thankfully it was very ink tight, or very tight because of the way it's done with the hand carving, and it didn't make a mess anywhere. I've gone through, in any converter of questionable age, I proactively said it's worth the couple of dollars for the peace of mind to have a nice new converter in there. So double check your converters, because if it seems questionable, save yourself the mess so you don't end up with ink everywhere, because that's not fun. But I'm looking forward to getting those in. I actually just was playing around with the label maker in that box earlier today. George, I'm going to get another one, because that's something, if you're in the Nashville area, you're going to be in 2 weeks, the 23rd and 24th. Matthew Chin is going to be doing an in-person event at Gentleman Stationer. And I plan on getting at least one more Kadachi ground. I really love my Kadachi I got at Arkansas this last year. And then maybe get something else just screwy. Give him one. He knows that I like thin, like the tiniest nibs, and I have his needlepoint. I have a Japanese extra fine, and just get one of his other, like, unique, like a beak or something like that, just to have. Yeah, Matthew Chin is one of the most traveling nib grinders I think there is. That he posted something on his Instagram a while back of how much he had traveled over the last year, and it was ridiculous. I think he spent more time away at shows or at like in-store events than he spent at home. And but I guess if that's going to be, if that's what you do, that's what you do. You got to go where people need nibs ground. And, even it shows, since he doesn't do appointments, he does like the way he learned and apprenticed under, of you just do a list when people walk up and get on the list. That's just a different way to handle that as well. So yeah, I love my Kadachi. I also have an Uranagi, which, I realized the other day I don't have it in a pin at the moment. So one other thing I got that I don't have up here with me, let me see if I can pull a picture up to show. So one nice thing about going and visiting another pin maker is I came home with a couple of other blanks. And let me see if this will. Okay, so let me zoom this. And I'm so glad I got my zooming stuff to like be automated. That makes this streaming much easier. So these are 3 more blanks. The one in the middle is the same one as this pin here. So that kind of shows how it started and how it ended up in a rough sense. And I don't know, Nick, if the beak is the same. In talking to Matthew when I was going to get some other stuff ground, he doesn't think that the PO is really needed as much anymore now that we have steel nibs. And that might be something with, since you also like writing like I do with the tiny nibs, talking to him about with with steel nibs, you don't need to do that same type of form, because you're not trying to make a soft material of gold be more rigid. So, and Dragon Drawer, I don't know if Kirk or Math, now that Kirk has a physical location, I could see him potentially traveling a little less because he'll have a storefront to deal with, but who knows? But, one thing I think is certain, anybody who's a nib grinder, they're never going to not have plenty of to do wherever they go. But of these blanks here, I really liked this purplish, greenish, tealish one, and that might become a pin for personal use. Because that's where I've been balancing, pins that I'm making for other people, but I also want to, keep the fun for myself as well. So making and using pins, the ones that I have so far, like this one's one I use all the time that I made, and I love it. And it was like one of the first pins where things pretty much went right. I only had a couple little things I had to contend with after the fact, but I've really enjoyed using it. There's something mentally stimulating about, hey, I made that and I'm using it and I like using it. It's really been nice. But yeah, so that either this one or the green, because I like lime green. I don't know why I like lime green, but it's one of those weird colors. Like in the garage, a lot of my tool stuff, tool colors are kind of either red, blue, black, or lime green is a really popular color. So the trays that my sockets go on are lime green on a black toolbox. So there's something about that I don't know. One of those two will end up as a Derek pin, and the other one will just go in the blank drawer, and that could end up being one of the channel supporter pins or something like that. Some of it I've just been kind of doing a grab bag, like open the drawer, reach in and pull a piece out, and that's what I'm making. So that's how this greenish blue came to be. That was the one that came out, and then there's another one I grabbed at the same time, which is kind of an orangish red. And even with which one was I going to turn next, I just reached over to the left and picked up a piece, and okay, we're doing the green one because I had them pre-cut down. And that's how I was able to get so much of this done in an hour today, is I already had it cut so I could instantly put it on the lathe and start the turning part. But this will be one that by next week, it probably will, with the rest of the finished work and just other time, I'll be able to show maybe a finished product of this on next week's stream. And then so that way I will have shown like an in progress. So this is raw material. This is turned down somewhat, and you can even see the texture and the smoothness there. And then once it's polished and finished, it'll be, you know, even a completely different look from that. Because I know Nick can say, once I get some ebonite, Nick, that's really what the holdout is. I think it would be fun to turn, but this pin, the material, I mean, you can see from this here, that doesn't look like there's going to be anything see-through in it. And then you turn it down some and it's mostly see-through. So that's the part that I'm really enjoying, is you have no idea what it's going to look like. And then there's one other blank that I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I'll definitely show the raw material on a stream before I get to that point. It's going to be a lightsaber pin, because one end of it is like solid gray, so it kind of looks like a hilt, and the rest of it is transparent pink. So it would look like a lightsaber blade. So if I make the body with the gray as the body, and then have the cap and the section be the transparent pink, and I might end up doing it reverse and do the cap as the hilt and the other way, but it just looks so trippy cool that if I can pull it off, and I've already been thinking about, because there's some other things like adding in grooves and notches and things like that that you can do when turning, that I'd like to try adding onto once I get that, assuming the material behaves and everything works, to make it look kind of like a lightsaber. I just think that would be neat. And I had to finally get a new Dremel for something, so I might even take a shot at doing some like hand engraving of little details on it, and that's where my brain is going with that. But I want to get a little bit more under my feet before I jump into that level of experimentation. But that blank, I knew instantly when I saw it. I was like, that's what that's going to be at some point. So hopefully that point will be soonish. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there. We're hitting 7:30, and need to go let my dogs out and grab some dinner and all that kind of stuff. But I appreciate all of you taking some time this evening. I think this has been fun. We've got a good chat going, and a lot of you, because you're already channel members, will end up with a pin at some point. If you want to become a channel member, there's a link below that says how you can join. You get early access to videos. And in terms of videos that I have drafted out of what I'm going to do, one of them is going to be kind of introducing officially the typewriters to the channel. And then the first video I do after that will be the typing. What kind of got me into the typewriters is typing a letter to Tom Hanks, because the general consensus is if you send him a typed letter, he will send you a reply from one of his 300 plus vintage typewriters. And that idea really helped me, tip the scales on me getting a typewriter, and then you can see where that's gone. So obviously I'm going to have to do one of those, but hope all of you have a good rest of your week, a good weekend. Some of you I'll see this weekend and you'll get your pins. And if you're going and doing anything stationery or pin related, hope you have a good time. And until next week, I'll leave you there. Have a good evening, and I'll catch you on the next stream.